Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Innate Wealth Weekly Wrap. How are you today, gentlemen?
Going really well, Shane. How are you, my friend?
Well, mate, as well as can be in a lockdown. I think it's 19.6 now.
Yeah, look, it's starting to become really annoying. That's all I know. really annoying.
We're becoming good at it, though.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mick. We're very good at it. I think one of those, you're watching the Olympics over the last couple of weeks. One thing that's clear about Olympians is they practice a lot and they're good at their craft. We're really good at lockdowns. We do a lot of practice at it.
But one thing I will say, and for the benefit of our listeners, last night we were listening to Daniel Andrews speak at 4:15, and at 4:30, I think the first 6-pack of beers hit the table, and they said, "Boys, you want a drink?"
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So it was quite sad.
While you're collecting your monitors and laptops, grab a beer.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's frustrating. It is frustrating.
And the news today was that expect more of the same for the next couple of months. So I guess we will. This is the new norm for a period of time, and hopefully the vaccine rolls out and we can see some normality again.
Yeah, look. I think the one thing that's abundantly clear, Shane, is that decision by New South Wales to try and go a different way, which we, by acknowledging it fairly, we supported that notion too. That's come to hurt. And the whole eastern seaboard now is in trouble as a result of it. So it's a mess.
Indeed. Now, Mirko, as always, mate, would you be as kind to share the data from the week that has been, please?
Well, if we prove to be half as resilient as the share market, we'll be going all right, I reckon, because markets seem to be defying all the odds and actually going okay. So pretty flat in the US, the 4 days of trading that they've had. Dow Jones 0.38% up. The Nasdaq up 1.5%, and the All Ords is actually up almost 1.5% for the week. A little bit off today, and that's probably off the back of actually the RBA met earlier in the week. The first Tuesday of the month, certainly maintaining cash rates at 0.1, reiterating the language that's likely to continue all the way through to 2024, and confirming the CPI numbers. So we had that. The June quarter CPI for the year at 3.8%. So, but definitely maintaining that is a spike in inflation as opposed to a constant scenario. And just about an hour ago, the RBA released its August statement on monetary policy, and they were confirming. I was just reading it before that their forecast for GDP growth this year. They're reducing it from 4.75% down to 4%, and certainly conceding that the September 21 quarter GDP will be a negative number, which is not unexpected given we're all in lockdown. I think there's 16 million people as it right now in lockdown.
It's a big number.
But some good news on the Aussie market this week. I don't know if you guys saw the headlines. Afterpay was acquired by a US company. I think it was the original founder of Twitter that acquired Afterpay for $39 billion. So we do have some, and they see themselves as.
And that was a B for billion too, right, Mirko?
Yeah, B, mate. That time I sat in that managed fund meeting when the US guy was saying that they managed X $1 trillion, and I put my hand up and said, "Did you just say trillion with a T?" Yeah, it was 39 billion is the acquisition. So the two founders there. Walking away with a pretty healthy profit. And I think they started from 0 6 years ago. So good luck to them. And nice to see the merger and acquisition. Australia's still on the radar for good stuff.
It's a great story, isn't it? And putting aside, what they do, but the two guys are neighbours, and they happened to be chewing the fat in the driveway one day and made Afterpay, and $39 billion later, the rest is history.
Good on them. Good on them. All power to them, I reckon.
Wonderful story. Now, thinking about 16 million people in lockdown, Luke, you came across some data which has been released this week in regards to the migration of people out of our state here in Victoria into other parts of the country.
Yeah, look, it was an interesting article that appeared in The Age during the week, and they were talking about the migration into Victoria, and Victoria traditionally has been receiving anywhere between 100 to 120,000 new people per year, which probably explains why it felt like it was just getting busier and our infrastructure was getting squeezed. This year it's been 700 odd. So that's a massive drop. And what we've seen is we've actually seen a massive exodus out of Victoria. So we've seen the beneficiaries of that has been Northern Territory, has been Queensland and Tasmania. But what we've also seen in the city of Melbourne is that we've actually seen a mass migration out of Melbourne, the city, out of suburbia, and more into regional Victoria. which is great for the regions and fantastic for them, but the regions aren't actually equipped for that influx of people as well. So the roads aren't built, the infrastructure isn't there, there aren't hospitals in those areas, there aren't doctors in many respects as well. So there's a lot of these issues. So when people have gone and moved and they've taken the tranquil lifestyle and said, well, it's probably safer to live out there, they probably haven't considered what the ramifications are if they actually did become unwell later on. So that's an issue. But that, interesting enough, that article also then extended into something else that came through yesterday, some data that we saw was that today, currently in Melbourne CBD, 10.4% of buildings are unoccupied. So that's one building in every 10 that is sitting empty at the moment in Melbourne CBD. The biggest areas of weakness are St Kilda Road and Docklands. And they're up to 16% unoccupied. This has massive, massive implications for the valuations of those buildings, because ultimately the value of those buildings is assessed by the rent that they receive. So this is a massive issue, I think, which is simmering under the water, that we need to be very careful about.
And if you want me to throw another grenade there, the Victorian government announced recently after that last lockdown that commercial tenancy relief scheme, which in a nutshell, I read it this way: if your revenues as a business have reduced by, say, 40%, then you should be getting a 40% reduction in your rent. So there'd be some landlords scratching their heads thinking about, so hang on a second, the government has now made a decision about what the return on my investment is going to look like. Interesting times for that market.
There's a bit of a tale, isn't it? Because so far there's been a lot of lease agreements in place and now they're coming up for renewal and people aren't renewing and renegotiating different terms. And that, on top of that, Mirko, is a fascinating, again, intervention by the governments of the world. They continue to, poke their nose into assets and how people can assess them.
Well, the thing that staggers me is the way no one's actually asked the landlord. The landlord themselves may have gone and borrowed, may have invested and done all those sort of things. They've got their own liabilities to pay and so on. And just this it's bloody mind, isn't it, that no one would actually go to the landlord and go, actually, can you afford a 40% reduction?
Yeah, so they're happy to take my best statements as a tenant, as an example, and say, oh, here's my business is really struggling. Can you give me a chop out on rent? But no one sort of said, actually, Mr. or Mrs. Landlord, can I have a look at your financials? Because perhaps you're geared to the hilt. And perhaps that if you don't receive the rent, we're going to have to sell this building underneath you.
Staggering. Absolutely staggering, this.
Interesting times indeed, gentlemen. And next week in our Pulse, we're going to obviously explore the impact of these lockdowns economically for Australia. It's, we're oscillating off backward and forward, but this doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon, and it's going to bite at some point.
Mate, I had a friend of mine last night who sent me a text he just said, he goes, and it was a text to all of us as a group, and he said, I've done my savings. I've got nothing left. I've stayed alive as much as I could to keep on paying my workers. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Business is closed. And you just sit there and your heart just looks at this bloke and you kind of go, and I know what he's like. He's a great bloke. Yes, he can be a little bit loose occasionally. This is not his fault. And, we're now in lockdown number 6 with 7, 8, 9 and 10 forecast. This is tough work.
Yeah, most definitely. This is the part where it starts to really dig in, and stimulus support and things are diminishing, not increasing, and it's tricky time.
Absolutely. So all I can say to everybody is I know everyone is hurting out there. Just stay positive, keep your head up. It will get better. Just look to the UK. I think, Shane, you had some an interesting slant on the UK numbers in terms of what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I being glass half full, trying to find optimism around the world and a pathway out. And the UK are having decreasing case numbers, vaccine rates of nearly 70%. And admittedly, they had a huge amount of infections last year, which helped with the base level of immunity to the virus. But, interestingly, it's a light into the tunnel. This week, they opened up their borders to France and other parts of Europe, and residents are now able to travel a bit more freely. So there's a simmer of hope out there, I feel.
Fingers crossed, my friend. Fingers crossed.
The UK opened its borders to France. There must be something going on. There must be something positive going on.
You got to trap them, and there's yeah.
They must
this
be
is the next
desperate for
wall.
the cash.
Yeah. All right, gents. Well, enjoy a lockdown weekend, and we will see everyone online again next week. Take care.
Take care. All the very best, guys.
Stay safe, guys.